like to call the Monday, October 3rd, 2022 Township meeting in order. Please rise for the flag salute.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by faxing notice of the meeting to the Atlantic City Press, Star Ledger, Camden Courier, and Atlantic County Record on January the 7th, 2022. Mr. Cheek.
Here.
Ms. Hopkins.
Here.
Mrs. Link.
Here.
Mr. Patali.
Here.
Mayor Kane.
Here. Next, I'd ask you to join me in a moment of silence for private reflection, and I ask that you keep all those affected by the devastation of the recent hurricane in your hearts and prayers. All right, we'll begin by, we have a guest presentation regarding the Great Eric Harbor National Scenic Recreation River Council. Mr. Akers?
Good evening, everyone. We wanted to come this evening and just kind of put in a pitch for the river and do a little historical dock connections. I gave you a handout that has a lot of background information on the wild and scenic designation and Hamilton's role in that. The quick cliff notes is that in 1992, 129 miles of the Great Egg Harbor River were designated by Congress to be included in the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Program. And Bill Hughes was kind of the principal architect of that, but Bill Bradley was involved, and Frank Lottenberg, and some other folks. But it was a unique designation because it was the first wild and scenic river in the country that was not on federal lands. So it's all non-federal lands, and the question was, how will a river be federally designated but yet be managed and protected forever with no federal lands? So the solution was to kind of recruit the towns and a nonprofit to kind of do it. And that's what happened. It took 8 years for them to figure out what to do. So this comprehensive management plan was published in 2000. And it's a pretty good document even to this day. There's an excerpt from here in your packet that is the part about Hamilton Township. So anyways, the Watershed Association over the years has been receiving federal funding. We have 3 staff people right now. We have a new staff person who regrets that she couldn't come tonight, Brooke Hanley, because she lives in the basement of her parents' house on the Tuckahoe River, and it's flooding. So she couldn't be here this evening. So over the years, I mean, I've been here all the years, Hamilton Township has done a lot to benefit the river, whether it's at the elected official level or the staff or residents. And I put a list of some of the accomplishments. One that I'm most proud of that's kind of recent is the acquisition of 2nd Street Park at the end of 2nd Street. And that was really a great partnership between Hamilton Township and Atlantic County and the state and the Watershed Association. And in the end, we had to use $10,000 of federal money to get that across the finish line because the seller needed a little bit more than fair market value. So those are that's an example of the things we do. So we're here, we're getting stronger, we're better funded, and we hope we can do more things with you. One of the highlights is that you, Hamilton Township, have appointed a river counselor for the last 22 years, and it's the same guy. And I think in 22 years, he's missed 2 meetings. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and if you have any questions or any ideas of things to do, get a hold of us. We'll be happy to
Thank
talk.
you for everything you do.
Hi, folks. I'm Bill Chrisman. I know all of you. You know me for many, many, many years. And one of the highlights of my career of working with the township, and it was brought to my attention today, it was 35 years ago this week that I was first appointed to the Environmental Commission by Jack Percy. And 35 years, wow. In those 35 years, the Environmental Commission for about 18 years, appointed to the River Council. It's been 22 years now, I think it's been on the River Council, representing the township with one member of all the municipalities, the 13 municipalities that touch the Great Egg Harbor River. And it's special to me because having grown up on the river, that's where I learned to fish. I learned where to swim. I built a raft when I was 11 years old and almost drowned, but it was the normal growing up phases that I had. And if it wasn't for the Great Egg Harbor River, that's why Mays Landing exists here today, because the river was here first. And it's been quite an honor to represent our township and to be reappointed so many times, to work with Fred Akers and his wife Julie Akers, and to experience what we've gone through working with the federal government, the National Park Service. And the National Park Service allows, and what we're here to remind you tonight is, we get funding from the National Park Service to use in our discretion to help municipalities. And we have over the years done a lot with our own municipality here. What you saw, what Fred had accomplished with the acquisition of the Second Street little island there that we got. That was the most recent. But over the years, we purchased 2 vessels, 2 boats for the police to use to navigate and patrol the river. And it's been a real experience. And I'm very proud, I'm very honored to be that person. And I just wanted to remind our township, because as years go on and people change up here on the dais, we get pushed aside. But I just want to remind everyone that the River Council is in full force. We have funding. We can always help. And there's a matter that we will discuss later on in the evening, maybe after public comment, that we have some ideas of helping the township with a cleanup that's involved in Gravelly Run.
Fantastic.
Okay? So we want to bring that to your attention. But I just want to remind the Township Committee that we are strong. I'm here. I'm your representative. And I would very much like to be kept in the loop. There's a lot of tributaries that come into our township. A lot of water comes into our township. And we're on top of all that. And I, again, would like to be included as much as possible on anything that involves the tributaries coming into all the water, the watershed of Hamilton Township. And again, I'd like to thank you for the many appointees that I've been given over the years. And it's been an honor, and I hope to
appreciate what
continue.
you do, and we do realize that obviously the river and the lake are 2 of our greatest assets.
Yes,
And we need to protect them at all costs. It is what makes Hamilton Township and Mays Landing in particular different, so.
you're correct. And we, the River Council, is there to help in any way, shape, or form that we can.
We appreciate that.
All right?
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
I want to make one last comment. On the third to last page in your handout, that's the people that signed the memorandum of agreement for everybody to get together to protect the river. And the person who signed that for Hamilton was Charlie Pritchard.
Thank you. All right, next we have a proclamation for Knockout Opioid Abuse Day. It's something we do annually to show our support. I have a brief proclamation that I will read. Knockout Opioid Abuse Day, October 6, 2022. Whereas New Jersey is in the midst of a life-threatening opioid abuse epidemic, and whereas the Partnership for a Drug-Free New Jersey has designated October 6, 2022 as Knockout Opioid Abuse Day, an initiative with 3 purposes: to raise awareness of the potential for dependency on prescribed pain medication and its link to heroin use rates in our state, to reduce the stigma of addiction and shine a light on the need for recovery and support, to communicate to physicians information on safer prescribing messages found in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines for prescribing opioids, which include considering other therapies, setting realistic treatment goals with patients, and discussing with patients the positives and negatives of opioids. And whereas the State Senate and General Assembly jointly resolved that October 6th shall be permanently designated as Knockout Opioid Abuse Day in New Jersey in order to raise awareness about the dangers of and the link between opioid abuse and heroin addiction, and to educate healthcare providers, community leaders, state lawmakers, and members of the public about the opioid abuse epidemic and its effects throughout the state of New Jersey and across the country. And whereas the Township of Hamilton and its Municipal Alliance Committee support initiatives designed to raise awareness about opioid abuse in New Jersey and take steps to prevent addiction. Therefore, be it proclaimed that October 6, 2022 be recognized as Knockout Opioid Abuse Day in the Township of Hamilton. So, it's unfortunate that we deal with that in our society, but it's important that we raise awareness, and any person we can help is a wonderful thing, so proud to be part of that. Next, we have some recognition for historic recognition in the town. So, if we could.
To get closer to the mic.
All right, well, so this evening what we're going to do is we're going to recognize some individuals from our township for historic preservation and what they've done with the properties and how they've contributed to the beautification and historic nature of Hamilton Township. So first we have Lillian Rocco, 6029 Ken Skull Avenue, formerly known as 125 Oak Avenue. This was built in 1885 in the Queen Anne style. The dominant architectural style built in our township between 1885 and 1910 exhibit elements of the Gothic Revival, Queen Anne, and stick styles to varying degrees. 6029 Ken Skull Avenue displays some of the most intricate architectural details found within the historic district, with its appointed arch windows, bay windows, and carved panels, and wraparound porch, which turned wood supports, brackets, and spandrels. Beautiful, absolutely stunning. The 1990 Mays Landing Historic District National Registry of Historic Places nomination identified 6029 Ken Skull Avenue as a contributing resource to the district due to its date of construction and its significant representation of the township of its unique Queen Anne architectural style. You can see, I mean, that's just beautiful. I mean, that's what we, we appreciate it. It looks beautiful. We also have 115 Cape May Avenue, Cheryl Caleri. 115 Cape May Avenue, formerly known as the Township Hall, was built in 1927 as the town hall with a fire department on the first floor. Character-defining elements of the dwelling include its massing, step brick parapet, rounded arch openings, and symmetry of window openings on the primary facade. The brick parapet bears a cast stone panel that reads Hamilton Township Hall on the front. We all see that up top. Very nice. Between 1995 and 2002, a portion of the building was converted into a bank. Ms. Caleri purchased the property in 2019 as a home for Earth Angels for Dementia. Earth Angels provides training, support groups, stress-relieving activities, and resources to assist caregivers in caring for their loved one with dementia. For more information, you can reach out to Earth Angels by visiting them at earthangelsfordementia.org. The 1990 Mays Landing Historic District National Register of Historic Places nomination identified 115 Cape May Avenue as a contributing resource to the Mays Landing Historic District due to its date of construction, design, and role as a community building. Very nice, thank you. So we're honoring them both this evening. This is an excellence in historic preservation, and it states, whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton, the citizens of the township, local organizations, and outside entities have endeavored to preserve and protect buildings and sites in the Township of Hamilton which are deemed to have historical significance. Whereas the Historic Preservation Commission strives to support the efforts of the Township Committee to preserve and protect that properties that have valuable historic significance and add to the charm of historic Mays Landing. And whereas the Township Committee and Historic Preservation Commission recognize the hard work and dedication of our residents who have worked so hard to successfully preserve the historic integrity of their homes and properties and keep the history of the township alive and fresh on the minds of everyone. Now therefore be it proclaimed that we, the members of the Township Committee and the Historic Preservation Commission, Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey, on this day, October 3rd, 2022, honor Lillian Rocco, 6029 Kensko Avenue, and Cheryl Caleri, 115 Cape May Avenue, in recognition of their hard work and commitment to preserving the historic character and charm of their properties.
People who know me are going to know that I'm going to say something. Thank you, and I'm humbled by this, I must tell you, and humbled to be part of a community that supported us for the time that we've been here, starting up and through COVID. That building, it's not me. It has a personality. I mean, it was safety for the people with the firehouse. It was trust with the people when it was a bank. And it's healing for the people with dementia and their caregivers. And it's a place of gathering. For those of you who don't know, we've sold the building. And we're still going to stay, so don't think we're leaving. We're still going to be here. But I asked the new owner to come tonight. It's going to be a Colombian coffee house. And I just wanted to introduce Juan Pinesco, who is going to be the new owner, and just to say hi.
Hello, everyone. I really can't wait until that day comes. I'm very proud of the community. I read a little bit. I'm from Cape May County, and I love the history that we have around here. And I look forward to bring you probably the best coffee you ever had.
I'd like to thank the Historic Commission for their recognition of these properties and the great work that they do. So thank you very much. All right, next we will move on to addition and deletions of agenda items to be considered for action this evening. We have the removal of 3C, please. Next, we'll move on to early public comment on agenda items excluding items listed for public hearings.
Mayor, these two, well, one struck off, so it doesn't look like they need it. These two other ones, I believe it's more for public comment on here, not for anything individual, so.
So we'll wait till the end?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 4. This is a public hearing for adoption of ordinances. A, ordinance 2012-2022. This is an ordinance.
Are we doing the discussions,
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Discussion items, formal actions may be taken. A, first one, street vacation request, Massachusetts Avenue, please. Committee, you have this in your packet. We did have this on, obviously, prior. This is the street out, I believe, Joe, help me out with exactly the location on
So
this.
This is Massachusetts Ave, and these were consolidated lots. In order for the street vacation request to be considered, it was conditioned that the consolidated lots had to be done first.
There is a map attached for
And that is
committee member.
complete.
So committee, that's the background. Questions, comments?
Yes, I understand Mr. Oldfield and his neighbor have come to a decision that they would share 50/50 the road that is vacated. Now, is there an agreement of what 50/50 is?
Well, when you vacate like that, 50% automatically goes to one property owner and 50 goes to the other, unless a separate agreement is made. So that's exactly what would happen.
I mean,
Does one property owner want to refuse it, or?
no, does one have the right-of-way going east and another one has it going west? Explain to me a little bit more about how they share 50/50.
Well, the road is being vacated,
I know.
so they will equally end up with the property that adjoins their property equally. So if the road is 25 foot wide, one owner will get 12 and a half feet, one owner will get 12 and a half feet.
I think in looking at it, it looks like this land is equally, in other words, it's parallel. One doesn't have the north end or the east end. I just, to me, I'd like a little bit more definition of how someone would agree to 50/50.
Mrs. Link, you've been on committee for a very long time. We handle these at almost every committee meeting, and they all go exactly the same. The statute says that once a road is vacated, that 50% goes to whoever's on the one side of the road and 50% goes to the other. We don't enter negotiations on behalf of anyone to split the percentage up. The percentage is what the percentage is.
Okay, I'd like to avoid any arguments that go along with it. That's why I wanted to have it more defined. I know we've done it numerous times, but now I'm asking.
Was my answer sufficient for you, or?
Yes, I'd still like some more information from the people who are vacating this property.
If I can just interject, all that I'm looking for this evening is an okay from committee to proceed. Once, if you have no objection to me proceeding, I'm going to contact Mr. Oldfield, and he'll bring in the $500, and he'll also bring in a meets and bounds description, which will be done by an engineer. So you'll see exactly what it is. Then it'll come back to you in the form of an ordinance. The property owners will be notified. They'll have a chance to come. You'll all have a chance to discuss it at that point. So this is just telling me I can go forward. Mr. Oldfield's been waiting quite a bit because he had to consolidate those properties. So that's all I'm looking for tonight. There will be a meets and bounds and engineer description for you to look at in the future.
Thank
I
you,
really
Ms. Marchino.
appreciate that, Rita.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Any other questions, Ms. Link?
No.
Committee, any questions, or you're just looking for, you want us to?
Just a motion that it's okay with you that I collect the money and proceed.
I'll consider a motion in that motion. So moved. I have a motion by Mr. Vitale, second by Mr. Cheek. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to B. Discussion, Wells Fargo resolution to authorize the purchase of certain real estate known as 6010 Main Street, Block 743, Lot 13, between Wells Fargo Bank and the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic. Committee, questions, comments?
The comment that I have is one of question.
Sure.
First of all, are we buying a piece of property that has a sizable tax benefit to the township? I understand that Wells Fargo presently pays $25,000 a year for the taxes they owe us every year. And if we decide that we don't care about this rateable and that we want to buy it, then we will get zero taxes from that piece of property. And the fact that this has never been done before, not in my recollection anyway, but Mr. Kane always tries to tell me how I can recall things. All right, but in my recollection, I've never seen our township buy. We sell off things that fall in our lap because of sheriff sales, but we normally don't become a redeveloper of a piece of property, spending taxpayers' money to redevelop that piece of land. Now, it has been rumored that, we'll just tear that piece of building down and put parking for everyone who wants to come shopping in Mays Landing. Well, that's a redevelopment that the taxpayers would have to pay for, and I don't think that is appropriate. The person who should sell that piece of property is Wells Fargo to someone who wants to develop that piece of property, not us. So I am really in an afterthought. I thought, it would be a very dynamic way to bring life to the center of Mays Landing. But this is not the appropriate way. And as we sit here today, we have no one in mind for buying that piece of property. We would have to maintain it, and if we do a bond for it, we will have to pay interest on that bond for it. And to me, it's a lose-lose situation, not a plus-plus situation. And there's a lot of things that also have to be determined before you can take any property down in the middle of a historic district, and that's the Pinelands. And that would have to go before them as well. So I think it was a progressive thought, but I don't think this is how we have to go about it. We will encourage Wells Fargo to find a buyer and see what they would like to do. But we are not the developer. The person who comes into and buys are the developer. The township should not enter into this kind of activity. Because where does it stop? Shall we all buy the racetrack? Shall we buy the cotton mill? Okay, what else? What else can we buy and then go into total debt? No, this is not the one thing that you should do. So that's my comment.
Well, first of all, we're not buying the racetrack. Second of all, the cotton mill, it's very exciting. Met with them just recently. The cotton mill, we are in the final stages of a beautiful development of the cotton mill. Several years ago, we met with Cotton Mill. We took some action, and since then, they've been on a time schedule. They've met all their time schedule. They presented us with a set of plans a few weeks ago. We're fine-tuning a couple of those plans. It is a gorgeous project, and it will be an anchor for that side of Main Street, and I hope that we'll be announcing that as soon as next week. With a full press fanfare, so I'm very excited about that. But now, now I gave you the floor. May I talk to you?
Yes,
May I talk for a moment?
The cotton mill we put under redevelopment.
Miss,
They
Mrs. Link,
bought it. They've
Link.
had it for 17.
You're the one that mentioned that we should be buying it. You
No,
said,
I
that's what you
just-
said,
that
so
was
that's why I just wanted to bring
hypothetical.
that up. There's
That
a
was
beautiful plan
hypothetical.
at the Cotton Mill that's going to be announced in the
That
very
was
near future.
hypothetical.
So, Miss,
Where do we stop?
well, we need to start, and starting is a good point. And if you recall, quite about 10 years ago, we undertook a process in Hamilton Township called a SWOT analysis. It was conducted by Dr. Kesselman, president of Stockton, along with members of committee, and it was well attended by many members of the public. We went out into each community. We went out into Cologne. We went out into Lauderdale. We went out into Weymouth, downtown Mays Landing proper. We hit every community to make sure that we got as much community input as we could. That was designed to, and again, it was headed up by Dr. Kesselman. It was designed for us to identify the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of this township. I pulled that report out, and that report states that the strengths in Hamilton Township, among other things, as we heard earlier today, the river, Lake Lenape, but they mentioned the old railroad right-of-way. This isn't township committee people. This isn't planning board members or zoning board members. These are community members. Overwhelmingly, they thought our strengths were Main Street could be an asset and a strength, and that the old railroad right-of-way and bike trail would be a strength. Now, that's just part of it. There's a whole lot more here I won't bore you with. We have undertaken the process of starting a relationship with the county to redevelop the bikeway that's behind the Wells Fargo Bank. That includes renovating the historic train station. Most people didn't even know we had a historic train station. We had a very nice ceremony out there just a few weeks ago. You know, in order for that to thrive and survive, we have to do things different in the town. You know, we can't just sit and say, well, let's keep doing the same thing and nothing happens on Main Street. The idea for that property, I'll go over in just a moment. The opportunities that were identified at that time, and again, there's a whole list of them, but I highlight the ones that I think are pertinent to this. The opportunities that were identified by members of the community were promoting seasonal events in Gasco Park. As a committee, we've started that. That is happening. There's a relationship started with the county. The county wants us to use Gasco Park, and we will continue to have more events there. Variety and dining options was another one. We just announced the Duberson School and the 501c3 started. We have certain dining options now, but we're talking about a rooftop restaurant on that property. One of the main things, and this is in capital letters, additional downtown parking. It represents tourism for water and recreation and dining. I don't think we can pick a better location. If we're going to improve the bike path in the back with the pier and the train station, you need parking, folks, and you need parking. This is 10 years ago and no action. The chief and I personally went to Main Street and tried to get parking spots on Main Street. Chief, what was the response? The cartway is too narrow because it's a historic street. It's too narrow, we can't get additional on-street parking. So the only way we're going to benefit our merchants and downtown Mays Landing with parking is to purchase properties where parking can be added. The last thing on this is the weaknesses. Again, long list. This is your neighbors that came up with this, your neighbors that attended these meetings. And the weaknesses were underdeveloped downtown, underdevelopment of Duberson School. We all know that that's in process. Lack of downtown parking, Main Street, the Mill Street complex, and I just told you that there's something very exciting that's going to be announced with that, and lack of businesses. And one of the things that really struck me was lack of follow-through with previous plans. Now, if we go to undertake these efforts, and we do these, and we don't act on the things that are brought up by our neighbors, if we don't act on them, then what do you need committee people for? Our job is to seek out and take these reports and come up with the ideas that you helped us design and do things with it. And that's what the idea with Wells Fargo is. When we sent the engineer out there, we came up with, I believe, 89 parking spots. By the way, no one in this room mentioned tearing down the buildings. We went in, we looked at the buildings with our township engineer, and it's a very unique situation there. And both of those buildings at this point will be standing, and I have personally, we have an economic development team now, and of course our community development director. I've personally spoken to 2 separate business owners, which I've discussed with them, that are looking to do separate things there. So the bottom line is we will control it upon the completion of this, if it gets passed, we will control it. We will turn it into a parking lot. We will sublease the buildings to a business that wants to locate downtown. And by the way, there's been chatter about banks. Wells Fargo, as long as it's a Wells Fargo-owned property, there can never be a bank there again. That is part of, they will not even consider an offer from another lender, another bank, because they will not allow their competition to go into one of their properties. So if we want a bank there again, and that's what it ends up being, the only way a bank's going to be there again is if the Township Committee takes action on that this evening. In addition to that, part of the design is a very nice boardwalk area, which we will apply for grant funding for, to access the waterway in the back. So people, with our new entrepreneur here sitting in town, coming into town, investing his hard-earned money, he'll have the opportunity to be able to direct his customers across there to sit behind that beautiful parking lot, and whatever businesses get attracted to it by us, and sit there and overlook the water and the wildlife and drink their coffee. So welcome to Mays Landing. We wish you all the success in the world, and we're going to do everything we can to help you be more successful, okay? So that is the plan for Wells Fargo, and it clears it up, and I think it's an amazing thing. Again, we should not go through these exercises if we're not willing to act on them as a community. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to actually give Main Street a fighting chance. So that's my piece.
I do recall a design, I don't know who authorized our township engineer to do this, and I believe it was you.
Our
to
township
tell-
engineer did not charge us for that.
Okay, well, I didn't see
Wanted to
any,
know if there was an
I did
opportunity
not
before we
see
made the
any,
offer.
I did not see any approval from the committee to do this, all right? With the parking with the facility still there, but then what it would look like without the facility there and how many parking spots we would get,
We did it both ways. You're absolutely
Yes.
correct.
so.
Mayor
And
Kane,
we weren't charged for that?
Joe, thank you. Thank you. Thank EDA.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Joe, by the way, the township engineer, took the time to go out there with us, inspect the building, go through it, and do a rough draft to see if it was even worth us moving forward to make an offer on the property. So, and we did, folks, just so you know, we made an offer. The offer was not accepted. Another party was involved. That party eventually backed out of the process, and that's how we ended up. I was very upset because we missed the opportunity. By literally, I think it was a day or so, we missed the opportunity. That opportunity presented itself again, and again, I don't think it's an opportunity this township should pass up at this time.
Mayor Kane, if I'm not mistaken, that bike path is going to connect Trenton to the ocean. It's going to come right through Mays Landing.
Camden.
Camden, thank you, Carl. So there's a lot of traffic that's going to come through our town by virtue of that bike path when it's connected. We're one of the last pieces to be connected. That parking is critical to the growth, and those buildings can be leased out for other facilities like coffee shops.
I specifically talked to a brewer, and I talked to another entertainment venue, which I'm not at liberty to discuss at this point, but we will be setting up meetings now. We're not going to do anything unless we pass this evening. If we do, we'll start setting up meetings and we'll start the plan in place, so.
Well, by my simple calculations, if it takes us as long to sell that property as it has been to deal with the American Legion building, we're going to sit on that for a while, just as we did 17 years ago when the cotton mill partially burnt down and has been a disgrace for the township to see.
Judy, you're right on the cotton mill, and I'm gonna go on record. For 17 years, that cotton mill has been just a train wreck disaster. To
Well, that's
Mayor Kane's
because
credit,
they have
Excuse me.
paid their
Claim
taxes.
she has the floor.
Wait
Excuse
a
me,
minute, no, I was talking and she interfered with me.
Please finish your thought, please.
Okay? The simple calculation that I have, if it lasts for 10 years not sold, that would be $25,000 in taxes that we didn't, $250,000 that we didn't collect on that building because it's now owned by the township.
And this is how the rumors start. The buildings, folks, please listen. The buildings will be leased out to another entity, and the township will generate revenue from leasing those buildings out. And the person that ends up think about it, they're going to end up with a business in the middle of a municipal parking lot. And that business, there's other businesses share that parking lot. It's a win-win for Hamilton Township. And you speak about, one of the first things I did when I got back on committee, and you've been on committee for how many terms? One of the first things I did was we reached out to Cotton Mill. I was sorry about the eyesore. I said I was going to do something about it, and we took action. One of the first things. It took several months because they were under the gun, but they came around, and we started on a timeline with them, and we have them at the finish line right now. As far as the American Legion property, that is a project that's redevelopment from a private entity to the township. This is a township-controlled property, which the township can move at the lightning speed. Whatever approvals the township wants to do, as long as they conform with the agencies that we have to conform with, we can move at lightning speed for this.
I, too, during my many years of tenure, have questioned about the cotton mill and its progress. I told every administrator, when they begin talking about this, I want to be invited. And I was never invited
Mrs.
to
Link,
sit
you've been
down.
on this committee for
I was
decades.
never invited
I
to
went
sit
to the
down.
administrator when I got
I
back on
was
committee, and I
never
said, I want a
invited to
meeting with the
sit
mill
down.
complex, and I want it now so we can fix the problem.
No, I was
we
never
fixed it.
invited to sit down.
I don't know why you need invitations for everything, Mrs. Link. We all do our thing.
I asked to be invited by the administrator,
Which administrator?
both of them.
Which ones?
The last one, which was the interim, Mr. Miller,
Okay.
Mr. Kostecki.
Well, Mr. Cheek and I have been at those meetings, and we can't have a third person, as you know, as would represent a quorum. I had to jump off a call today on a dam committee meeting because it represented a quorum. So that's what happens in
Well.
those situations. So, but the good news is the mill complex is right there. I mean, we're going to announce something very exciting within the next couple of weeks.
I more than welcomed this. This is one of the things that was on my bullet list or bucket list, so to speak. I wanted to be part of the cotton mill being revitalized, especially since before that fire, there was a wonderful plan for that cotton mill. My husband was part of the planning for that, and I still have copies of that. So definitely I was interested in that. I really have been very upset that our township should be exposed to the paints that are coming off of that cotton mill, that we should be exposed to that lead-based paint that comes off. Nothing has been done.
Ooh, that paint burned up 2007, Judy. It burned for a week, and those colors were magnificent.
Well, that doesn't mean anything.
All right, well, let's get back on Wells Fargo.
Wells
That doesn't
Fargo,
mean
Judy,
anything.
Judy, if I could mention one thing about Wells Fargo, if it's $25,000 a year in taxes, I'm sure the rent will include the tax money we would get. And then as a township, the township itself would get the revenue from that money. 56% of that $25,000 goes to the school board. The rent money doesn't go to the school board.
I understand
The rent
what-
money doesn't go to the county. So when you say 25,000, you can slice that by 65%.
And the school board's gonna make that money up and probably raise our taxes to get it.
Well, they're not gonna send a kid to school, that's for sure.
Well, the bank's not sending kids to school right now.
Exactly, yeah.
So just to be clear, the taxes on that building is $25,117. Of that, $6,960 comes to the township. District school tax man, this print is small, 8,400, regional, 5,100, county, 4,056, and then there's library tax, health tax, open space, they're small numbers. But as Judy said, we purchased this property, that ends. And there's no guarantee that we're going to be able to rent that out or lease that out right away. There's businesses that are closing that have been around for decades. Gasper's is closing, Voltaco in Ocean City closing. These were well-run establishments. This is a pretty scary climate to do this. We all saw what happened when COVID hit and restaurants were shut down. And I've got to think that people that are looking to start a restaurant got that in the back of their mind. Do I really want to do this right now? What's going to happen if there's another pandemic? It's just me. I'm a very, when it comes to, I'm very conservative when it comes to money, with my own money, probably to a fault. So your taxpayers' money, I'm conservative with, and that's why this scares me so much. So I also, one thing that was brought up was the SWOT meeting. So I'm looking at the master plan that March 4th, 2022 was re-examined, and one of the things that they said was the Sugar Hill area has been identified as having inadequate parking issues. This area is the general area along Summers Point Mays Landing Road nearest the intersection with Atlantic Avenue and Harding Highway. So this report says our parking problem is over there at Sugar Hill, not on Main Street. So I got to think, maybe we should be looking over in that area for something for municipal parking.
Agreed. And Carl, I sat in on the master plan reexamination for the third time. And we had lengthy discussions about that, and we wanted that in there because we have two great businesses on that side of town. We have, obviously, the Sugar Hill Inn, a magnificent piece of property that overlooks our beautiful river, and of course, we have Freddie J's that is now, doing a great job over there. There is a need for help over there, too. I don't know what that answer is, and that's why the reexamination report said that we should be looking into that as a township and as a community to see if there's relief that we may be able to offer in that area. And what that means is if a piece of property goes up for sale, is it worth it for the township to purchase? I don't know. We'd have to see what happens. But is it worth it for the community development director to be aware of it and help market it to the individuals of those two restaurants? There's many things that can happen. So that was talked about in great length because, there's a substantial need over there.
And also, don't forget, we purchased this. There's costs that come along with it. You got to keep the heat on. You got to keep lights on. So I don't know what those costs are a month. Have we looked at that to see what that's going to cost us? Have we looked at Public Works is going to have to maintain it? You got to cut the grass, keep that up to date. If there's a snowstorm, they got to plow it. He's already, I say he, meaning Brett, and the Public Works Department is already stretched out, as it is. And also, we just took over, well, I don't know if it's officially done, but we're taking over the MUA building, which grass has to be cut, maintained, parking lot has to be plowed, we have to keep the heat on, we have to keep the lights on. So these are all costs that we're taking on. Wells Fargo is trying to sell this building. It sounded like they had a buyer for a little bit, on the hook, and then for whatever reason that fell apart. I say give Wells Fargo another couple months to see if they can sell it to somebody where we don't get involved, sit back. We have a redevelopment director. We can help out with that. I'm sure there's other things that we can do. And a couple months down the road, if it's still on the market, then maybe we look at it. And also by then, who knows? They might be dying to get rid of it by then, and we could get it cheaper.
I think Wells Fargo is a perfect location for a town growth opportunity. I could name about 6 businesses right now that would love to go in there where they didn't have to worry about parking, and they could provide restaurant, they could provide microbrewery, it could be a senior citizen, it could be a gift shop, it could be a 20 different businesses. So if we are going to grow the businesses in Mays Landing, we have to provide them parking and we have to provide them facilities.
So if it's such a great deal, how come people aren't jumping on it? Why are we the ones jumping on it?
Because Mays Landing down proper, if the companies were to buy it, like the banks and stuff like that, you've got very limited parking for just that little tiny facility, Carl. You have to be able to share these businesses. You've got a train trellis that's going to grow to bring a whole bunch of bikers in. We're not going to have any place for them to go to the bathroom. We're not going to have any place. We're going to have all this traffic, foot traffic coming in. You want to have the restaurant growth in Mays
Bathroom
Landing?
at the county park.
Where's the county park, Carl?
Gasco Park. There's a bathroom right at Gasco Park, right where the bike
So
path is
they're-
gonna go
they're-
right by.
They're going to, yeah.
The trellis is just in its infant stage.
Any other questions or comments?
The trellis that we talk about is just in its infant stages. The county we're putting the money up to invest in that trellis, and then the county's going to come over and help us out
Trestle,
with
you mean, the trestle.
whatever it's called.
That's okay.
I know, it's a train thing that connects things. Okay, all right, I always get that sort of tongue-tied. But at any rate, I know what it is. And I don't believe that the county is going to be as giving as we say they're going to be. And I want to see them put up 50% of the cost to investigate that whole thing. Because if they don't investigate, then they don't do, and they seem to pull out how long has this dam going on? For 30 years. You got it. Okay, so, yeah, we want to grow ourselves, but we are 117 square miles. Mays Landing is one portion of it. And we want it to flourish as well. But, there are other alternatives besides, doing what we're suggested to do. So maybe the Wells Fargo could say, okay, if I sell it, I'll sell it on condition that all those pieces of property or those parking spots will become municipal parking spots, and then we could charge people for parking. How about that one? Would that be a
I think we
great
need to
idea?
get businesses downtown first. We need to support those businesses. I don't think we should be talking about charging them for parking. I want people to come to town. I don't want them to be deterred.
Oh, well.
I unapologetically support this. I ran on more than one occasion on supporting Main Street and seeing a revitalization of Main Street. This is an integral part, folks. This is why we sit up here. These are the decisions that need to be made. And I think that it could, again, be the catalyst that really propels Main Street in the near future. So, questions, comments, any additional? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Cheek,
Second.
second by Ms. Hopkins. Rita, could we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
I vote yes. I feel as if this is 40 years we've watched Main Street deteriorate, and now this is a chance that we can turn around and try to improve something.
Ms. Hopkins?
I vote yes. I think the parking in Wells Fargo is perfect. Co-located inside of Mays Landing, that train trestle's going to grow. It's going to bring foot traffic, and we're going to be really glad we were progressive in acquiring this. So I vote yes.
Mrs. Link?
My answer is no. We are not in the business of buying. We're in the business of selling property, not buying.
Mr. Vitale?
I think everybody heard what I said, what I voiced earlier, so my vote is no.
Mayor Kane?
Yes. And Ms. Link, to your point, and to the compliment of the Industrial Commission and the Realtor, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parcels, not including the street vacations and small individual lots we have. We have 6 closed and more to follow before the end of the year. So it will be a big help to our budget process next year and offsetting some of the costs, so. All right, we'll move on
That's
to.
3 yes, 2 no, motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Martino. All right,
Mr.
we'll
Mayor.
move on to 4A. This is public hearing, adoption of ordinances. First, we have A, ordinance 2012-2022. This is an ordinance authorizing the sale of Lot 12 in Block 222, as shown on the tax map of Township of Hamilton, and granting to the owner or owners of said real property contiguous to the same right to prior refusal to purchase such land in the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey. This is, I went over this earlier, I believe this is High Bank Road. We had discussion on this the last meeting. It's out in the Weymouth section off of Driftwood. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this matter? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion, please.
So moved.
I have a motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Committee, what's your pleasure?
I'll motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Cheek.
I'll second.
I have a second by Ms. Hopkins. Rita, could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
All right, yes.
All yes and adopted.
All right, we'll move on to B, 4B, ordinance 2013-2022. This is an ordinance authorizing the sale of Block 758, Lot 7, as shown on the tax map of the Township of Hamilton. Committee, questions, comments? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Please. Come on up to the microphone, Joe, and you have to state your name and address, please. I need you to come up to the microphone if you wish to speak, Joe, please. Thank you. We have to be able to catch you on the recording.
If you had a public hearing on the purchase of the bank, it never got open to the public to have their input. What happened to that?
Joe, that was not listed for public hearing.
Charlie, you made a comment that that was public comment, it's a public meeting.
Joe, there's
Public
public
hearing,
comment at
public
the end of the meeting. If you have comments that you wish to speak about, you can.
What about the meeting open to the public prior to the, with an agenda item? I didn't sign
They're
up for that.
on agenda items listed. I didn't have anybody listed for that.
These are specific, this is for the specific bond ordinance and specific redevelopment.
Very well,
So, okay.
very well, thank you.
Okay, Joe? Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion, please.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Committee?
Make a motion to move 2013-2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Vitale,
Second.
second by Mrs. Link. Rita, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
And this is the American Legion building.
Yes.
So hopefully, this is
Finally.
yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
All right, next we have introduction to ordinance. The public hearing for these ordinances will be held October 17th, 2022. First, we have ordinance 2014-2022. This is a bond ordinance appropriating $900,000 and authorizing the issuance of $855,000 in bonds or notes of the Township of Hamilton for capital improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Hamilton in the County of Atlantic, New Jersey. Folks, you have a copy of this in front of you. This is an ordinance that will cover the Wells Fargo purchase and one half of a fire truck, a new tanker truck.
Roll.
Well, I think that this should be rewritten if we're putting a bond for the fire truck. It should be totally for the fire truck and not for the purchase of Wells Fargo. I think this should be considered at a future meeting. I don't think that it is appropriate to combine the two. And in my recollection, we have been putting monies aside for the purchase of the fire trucks. What happened to that money?
Mrs. Link, I could ask you the exact same thing. I mean, I got back on committee 2 years ago in the beginning of a pandemic. And where did that, when I was on committee the last time, there was a asset management plan in place, folks, and what that meant was that each piece of equipment for your emergency management services got the attention it deserved on a specific time schedule. And the township, it was part of what we did when we did this SWOT analysis. And that was to be put away each year in small increments so that we didn't get hit with big numbers like this. I don't know what happened to it. I got off township committee. Mrs. Link, maybe you can explain what happened to it, because it was put in place and it was being utilized and then it stopped for some reason.
I thought it was in the budget. I'll have to go back
that's-
and look at all my information in regards to the budgets and see where did it go. But what we normally have done, and no, I wouldn't be opposed to floating a bond for the whole cost of the truck, but not to buy something that's going to take away from our tax ratables, but what is good for our safety. It's a no-brainer. Sorry.
We appreciate your comments. Thank you. Any other comments or?
I don't understand why we're having both of these into one ordinance. I mean, one's for safety and one is buying a piece of property. I think they should be separate.
And we tabled the Wells Fargo last week because of the information we received regarding the fire truck, and we didn't want to pull two bonds because of the cost, and that's why we're doing it in this manner.
So what was the information about the fire truck? Because I didn't hear anything.
It was the maintenance records of it, the fact that it is the oldest truck in town. They just did a major repair on it. It's the first responding truck to, with water to Mays Landing and the MISPA area, and the truck is in 1996. And again, it's the most used truck, and it goes out the most, and it's the most needed vehicle, and it's past its life expectancy.
Yeah.
And as you know, Carl.
As I know, I was a
mean,
member of Mays Landing Fire for 18 years, so I do know
Appreciate
that
your service for that.
1819 was the first. So I kind of agree with Judy. Why are we only borrowing half? Why aren't we borrowing all of it? It's a public safety problem. We know MISPA doesn't have a fire company right now. So Mays Landing's covering it, so obviously the first truck out is going to be 1819. It's got the most water. And not only do we cover MISPA now, does Mays Landing cover MISPA, Mays Landing, also dual response for for anything over in Belcoville and Dorothy, I believe. Am I correct? So that truck is vital. So I mean, if we're ready to borrow that kind of money, I would rather borrow the whole, so if 450,000 is half, I'd rather borrow the whole 900,000 right now, and let's get a new truck right now.
Committee? Any other questions or comments, committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Any other further discussion on the motion? Is there a desire to raise that amount to cover the entire amount now? We haven't done that. Normally, we do it half now, half in the next budget.
That's what they want, I'll raise it.
Committee?
Well, as long as the 430,000 is in there to buy the Wells Fargo, I'll still vote no.
All right, then we'll talk about this bond in its infancy. Is there anything else, any other discussion on this particular bond?
So in other words, the truck's not worth, it's not the safety, it's the fact that Wells Fargo, he doesn't want to buy.
I don't want, no, we'll take Wells Fargo out.
No, but you'll buy the truck, but you won't buy Wells Fargo.
Well, of course, it's for
Yeah,
safety.
it's a no-brainer.
What do you want these
You'll
people to
take the
get?
truck out.
You're not going to tie that building onto it and try to force my hand to buy that fire truck and then throw the building on, take the building off.
Yeah, I was talking to,
We're talking about trying to save money on the cost of the bond. That's why this was done. If you want to raise it for the entire amount of the fire truck, listen, I had a conversation with the chief today. If you want to raise it, I feel there's a need for it. I want to see a new fire truck in that building, so I'm all for it if you want to do it. So,
no, you should not combine the two.
there's
It's,
a cost when you pull the bonds. It's much cheaper if you do it.
well,
when you
whether
buy.
it's cheaper or whether it's legal or not, I don't know. I would like to find a process of whether it is something that we should do. And besides, I'm not going to vote on it if it involves buying Wells Fargo. So you have two no votes.
Okay, thank you. So committee, what's your desire? Do you want to raise the amount? Bob, by the way, our solicitor could not get here because of the flood, and Mr. Salmon's joining us by phone. Mr. Salmon, is that something we're even capable of doing, I mean, with the substantial change that it would be?
A very substantial change. And I would add to that, can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes.
Yes.
I would add to that on a previous vote, you approved the execution of a contract for the Wells Fargo property.
And Bob, can
One
we
of
say
the
what that
conditions
vote was, Bob?
preceding,
Bob, can we
I'm
say
sorry?
what that vote was?
you approved a vote authorizing the execution of an agreement of sale for the Wells Fargo building. In order for that to happen as a condition precedent, the bond ordinance has to be passed.
Bob, can we reveal what the vote was? How many members voted for the purchase of Wells Fargo and how many voted against it?
3-2.
Bob, are you sure that wasn't 4-1? That was,
Previous meetings.
yeah, no, this was an executive session, folks. It's not discussed.
We don't vote in executive session,
we-
Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. All right, Bob,
I thought
thank
you
you.
were talking
Bye.
about tonight.
You can straw poll in executive session, Ms. Dix. So, all right, committee, what's your pleasure?
I move that we vote on it as is.
I have a motion.
As is?
Yep.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. Rita, could we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
No.
Mr. Vitale?
No.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
The ordinance is introduced, 3 yes, 2 no.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 6A. I'm
5B,
sorry,
sir.
6B?
5B.
No, it takes.
5B, Ordinance 2015-2022. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 235 of the Township Code entitled Processions, Parades, and Public Assemblies. Chief, you put this on. Would you comment on this, please? Chief, you have a moment on this, on 6B? I'm sorry, 5B. 6B.
Sorry, 5B, correct?
5B, correct, yes.
Yeah. So there was a typo on the ordinance amendment from last time for the fees for out-of-town kids, participants, and it should be $25 even for category 1, 2, and 3, which are the nonprofits.
Okay.
So we're just adding that in.
So we're not changing,
We're not, it was more or less a typo, essentially. So we're just adding it in, so everything that we talked about previously about how we wanted the out-of-town kids that were coming in, we wanted them to pay a little extra, is basically all that's being added.
Okay. Committee, any questions of the chief before he sits down?
But if they're out of town and they're nonprofits, then they're in that category where they don't pay much.
I'm sorry.
If they're out of town and they're in a nonprofit category, then they're in that special category where they don't pay much.
So what happens is, We have certain organizations in this township that are classified as nonprofit, but a lot of their children are from out of our township, so they're utilizing our fields without essentially paying anything more than the taxpayers are taking the brunt of the burden. So what we're asking is that they pay an additional $25 each child in order to participate in that sport in our township.
Any other questions of the Chief Committee? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second, Rita, all in favor, Rita, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and introduced.
All right, next we'll move on to 6A, award bids, contracts, and change orders. Resolution approving change order number 1 for Pine Creek Major Subdivision, bid 2021-02, contract amount increase $3,556.86. This is recommended by our engineer. I believe it was for additional millings or something. As we know, everything, prices have gone up on everything. I think, what's the difference here, $3,556, Joe, am I correct on that? So $3,556.86. Great, thank you, Joe. Committee, questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Link,
Second.
second by Mr. Cheek. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to B, resolution authorizing the award of a non-fair and open contract for the purchase of a Dynapro 9-foot, 3/4 yard dump body from DeJana Truck and Utility Equipment Company LLC in an amount of $24,875. Committee, I believe we've had previous discussion on this, and this was coming out of
Storm Trust.
SERP,
Storm Trust.
Storm Trust. So it's being paid for out of the Storm Trust, and thank you to Brett. We are outfitting an older truck with a newer body, so. Committee,
Motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, next we have the consent agenda. We have items A through J. I would ask to pull A and I if we could. Anybody else have anything else they want to pull or discuss?
No, I'm good with that.
We're good with that. I have a motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, I asked to pull A through A and I, and I just received, which we had a discussion prior to the meeting. I would ask that we approve A and I. They're a great addition to our community, with the stipulation that it's contingent upon the satisfactory fire official report, which we did receive one, but it would be contingent upon them continuing to work with them in the future to satisfy a few issues out there. So, if that being said, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second. Rita, roll call that one for me, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to personnel. A, resolution appointing Martin Martinez as a full-time truck driver, laborer 2, at $38,220.91 annually per collective bargaining agreement effective 10/5/2022. This is contingent upon successful completion of physical, drug screening, and background check. Committee, what's your pleasure?
So moved.
This is not increasing headcount, by the way, so thank you. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Per Mr. Knoll, this person meets all all requirements for the job posting, so I vote yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we have B, resolution appointing Elizabeth Ruiz as a part-time communications officer for the Hamilton Township Police Department at $17.27 an hour. Her start date is to be determined, contingent upon successful completion of the background process.
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to 9, approvals. A, minutes, regular meeting minutes of September 19, 2022.
So moved.
Moved.
second,
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Ayes have it. B, minutes, special meeting minutes of September 19, 2022.
So moved.
Motion.
second,
Second. Rita, would you roll call that one for me, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
And lastly, we have the bill list of C, $3,212,362.07.
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to reports. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. The township continues to hold meetings to engage current and prospective partners as part of our economic development. The Economic Development Commission will be coordinated with the Department of Community Development for outreach and event coordination to both businesses and residents. We are working with departments for customer service preparation and implementation in the new year, including the coordination of multiple online forms, permits, and new resident information packets. We held meetings with representatives of the school board to discuss budgets, partnership opportunities in an effort to grow programs that will help students now and in the future, including restarting Oakcrest Junior Firefighter Program, and we continue to address maintenance on problem-prone properties. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. Any questions of Joe, committee? All right, Mr. Sandman. Oh, you have something?
No.
Mr. Sandman?
I have nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
It's always good when you have nothing to report. Mr. Engineer? Wow. Fantastic, thank you. All right, Township Committee, Mrs. Link?
I, I would like to just share with you a moment that we had great anxiety about. It's personal. Our daughter and son-in-law and 2 grandchildren were in Venice Beach, Florida. And we couldn't hear from them. We didn't hear from them. There was a satellite of our grandchild in Boston had a satellite link to them and found out that they were okay. But we were so upset that they didn't vacate and get out of town when they were told to. Because, well, they had a church that he is a pastor at in their house. But I could just visualize the water coming up to their 2nd floor. Now, thank God they are okay. But they had recently built their house, and the house was made out of masonry. And apparently, that is what saved their house. So, whatever we can do to encourage, better building, more substantial things. I don't know what they're going to do with Fort Myers, but I just would like to pray for my grandchildren and children to go out and help people who weren't so fortunate.
Amen.
So,
Go ahead,
that's
Mrs.
it.
Link.
That's it.
We wish them all the best. Mr. Vitale?
Yeah, just add on what Judy said. I'm sure everybody in this building knows somebody who's affected down there. And I ask everybody, if you're going to donate money, make sure you vet out who you're donating money to. Make sure it's going to somebody that's going to actually help. Sad that we have to say that, but please be careful what you do with your money. it's really important it gets to the right people. Of course, all those people down there in our prayers. It's really sad. On an up note, Oakcrest beat Absegami in football the other day. No, it wasn't not on Thanksgiving Day, but I guess we have to progress and evolve and accept the fact that Oakcrest doesn't play Absegami on Thanksgiving Day anymore or the night before. It's hard for some of us to swallow, but it is what it is, and Oakcrest won. So good job to Oakcrest football. And also, a lot of stuff going on with Oakcrest extracurricular. The soccer team is doing fantastic. The band, even though they're nerds, they're doing really well. And one of those nerds is my girlfriend's daughter. So I'm at all the band competitions, supporting them as much as I can. And I'm sorry I don't know what's going on with some of the other sports, but those are the ones that I hear about and I saw. So great job out there to Oakcrest. And that's really it for me. Reagan, Maddie, miss you. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Ms. Hopkins?
I'm up. We've had a lot of rain the last couple days. And Brett, I want to thank you. I know you're out there. I know you're watching their dam levers. And I know you took the boards out this morning in the dam. Thanks for watching over all of us, because that dam, there's a lot of water in that lake, and we've got more coming from up north. So our gatekeeper here is doing a wonderful job, and we should all applaud him if we're going to applaud him. Thank you, Brett. Mayor King, that's all.
And the guys out cleaning the storm drains. Good job, Brett.
Mr. Cheek?
I have no report.
All right, I have a few brief comments. A couple things. One, the Duberson School. One of the things, and I guess we talked about it earlier tonight when we talk about the vision and trying to look forward and do something different with Main Street. One of the things that's making the Duberson School project possible is because we made a deal with the county and we swapped the 2nd Street parking lot for another parcel of land. We knew that it was going to be instrumental in getting something done with Duberson. So there's the kind of things you have to do sometimes. You have to go and make that move, because without that, this Duberson School opportunity couldn't happen. There's no parking for Duberson School at all. Now we have a parking lot for it. So that parking lot will be utilized with the Duberson School renovation into the Performing Arts Center. So you have to look at those things, and thank goodness we did that, because right now the county would like to have it back, because they didn't look forward enough to see that they were doing the courthouse and they gave up the parking lot, which worked out for us, thank goodness, because now we can go ahead and move forward with the Duberson project. By the way, Aaron, did we get the bank account opened? Aaron called the first meeting of the Board of Trustees, and they approved opening a bank account, correct? So we're in the process of that. The other thing, we talked earlier about the action that we took with Cotton Mill to get that project on track. They've been amazing partners at this point, and that's moving forward. And again, we're going to announce that real soon. You'll see exactly what's happening out there. It's going to be a beautiful addition. In addition to that, Deputy Mayor Cheek and I, one of the first things we did this year was we reached out to the redevelopment company for the landfill. Richie and I were extremely upset that that landfill has taken, I think we're 10 years in this? 10 years on this. We reached out to the developer, brought him in for a meeting, face-to-face, sat down, we finished that meeting. Joe, what was that, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
I'd say 3 weeks, yeah.
3 weeks ago, just like we're doing with everything else, folks, we put them on a timeline. You need to do certain things in certain ways, or there's obviously going to be penalties built into this. Just prior to the meeting, a few moments ago, I was meeting with the administrator. We received an email. The landfill closure plan is in final draft. We are clarifying some details with the NJDEP. There will be a closure plan along with an application for the October 17th committee meeting. So that landfill, finally, after decades, is going to get closed, and it will no longer be the township's responsibility. So I just want to point out that's one more great thing that's being accomplished there, and it's a long time coming. But we can talk about things, where we can do things. And as long as I'm volunteering my time, I want to get things done. So with that, I'll open it up to the public, please. Mr. Stride.
Mr. Mayor, I was happy to hear that you were referencing the strategic planning initiative that took place about 10 years ago. And I'm certainly in favor of the acquisition of the Wells Fargo building for many of the reasons that you spoke about. During that time, you'll remember, because it was you and or Dr. Kesselman that organized that. And like you said, people from all around the township went to all the firehouses. The committees were formed. This was all volunteer, people who wanted to be there. Those meetings, we met, I was on, I think, 3 of the 4. And we met weekly, maybe a year. I'm not sure how long it was. But so there was a lot of input. There were reports. Anyone can go online and read those reports to see what the residents of the township wanted. The SWOT was strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Purchasing the Wells Fargo building is an opportunity, and that will turn into a strength. Okay, you're going to lose a weakness and a threat, and that will be a positive thing for the center of Mays Landing. Okay. Second thing I'd like to address, at the last meeting, Mr. Vitale asked the question of Mr. Sandman if his participation on the dam committee was a conflict. Mr. Sandman did not answer the question. That question remains open. To put it in context, Mr. Vitale, or Committeeman Vitale, has served on Township Committee. He is currently on the Dam Committee, having privileged all the information and everything that goes on. Bids went out in an RFP, and coincidentally, the company he works for received the bid. Mr. Vitale asked the question at the last Township Committee meeting, is there a conflict? There was no answer to that. There's only one way to get the answer to that conflict, if there was one. That has to be referred to an independent investigation body. Typically, that goes to the Department of Community Affairs. Mr. Sandman cannot answer that question. He sits on that committee. Okay. So I'm asking to answer Mr. Vitale's question, is there a conflict? This Township Committee must refer this to the Department of Community Affairs for an in-depth investigation to answer the question. This question of conflict did not come from the public. It came from the dais. So I'm asking you to consider, to maintain the trust of our elected and appointed officials, to refer that to the department for an independent audit and come back with an answer to Mr. Vitale's question. I think it's important. Face value, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So I don't have all the facts. It would take,
Obviously.
it would take an investigative body to get all the facts, subpoena people that can answer, and come up with a conclusion. So I'm asking that this committee refer it to the Department of Community Affairs.
Mr. Sandman, do you have anything you would like to add?
I do not.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
DCA.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak?
Maureen.
Alice Henry from Drosera. When I was here last time, Mayor, I actually asked you about Trophy Park,
Yes.
and you directed us to the zoning board to talk to them.
Okay.
And on September 26th, we did go to the zoning board, and they told us that that is not the appropriate entity. to speak at, that actually the committee makes this decision.
I think there may be a little confusion. And again, if I misspoke, you have my apologies, but I don't believe that I did. What I said was, when this process, if the process continues to move forward, there's going to be plenty of bites at the apple for anyone that has concerns, because it'll go before either the planning and/or the zoning board for consideration with an actual site plan. At that point, it's a publicly announced meeting, and there is public comment for individuals that have an issue with a zoning or a planning application. So there's plenty of time. What I was trying to convey to you, I believe, is that this is not something that's being done in the dark. This is something that there's going to be public input on, and we can only do so much as a township committee. My job sitting up here is to spur economic development. Whether or not it works in the town from a planning and zoning perspective is not my job. That job now goes to the planning and zoning board,
I understand your statement.
if it gets that far.
However,
Yes.
what I would point out that this isn't really, like, this should be a project for redevelopment, not really for development. And by having all of Hamilton Township zoned for redevelopment, I believe is inappropriate. And taking out 268 acres of trees to demolish for the purpose of a sole investor, I really think is a very inappropriate use. And I really feel like we need to take a bite of the apple now, actually, and to use your own words for you.
I appreciate that.
And I'm sure quite a few people here agree. So we would all like, I think there's quite a few of us here who would like to go and support the initiative to try to stop this before it gets too far. Mayor, this was not, like, back in 2007, 2008, back when it was Magic Sports, and it was going to be in your backyard, and you were not particularly thrilled with the idea.
I'd be more than happy to address that with you. There are several differences between this. One, the Magic Sports was asking the township to land speculate. They wanted to get control of the land without turning any fees, money over to the township, and tie up that property in our industrial park for an indeterminate amount of time until they could see if they could get approvals or not. This developer is not doing that. This developer has went out, he's made his own deal with the property, and now he's coming and starting the proper channels in order to see if he can get approved. It's a totally different situation. I'm all for kids' sports, and at the end of the day, it was speculation in our industrial park.
I think most of us would be supportive of kids' sports, and especially as this is a for-profit company, not a for-public company, if it was zoned in an area that was actually listed as commercial, instead of having to rezone a wooded area that we all love our rural community here. And rather than change it and demolish all these acres, why don't we utilize one of the 9 targeted areas for redevelopment where there's a budget for doing so?
And just for the record, the property that was in the industrial park was rezoned by the township committee at that time, so.
My concern is, as you said, that since the committee pretty much has the choice to vote, that you guys can move at lightning speed for doing this. And I really think that I'm very concerned that we're going to lose our opportunity here. to
Okay,
go and
I need to
fix
clarify a point with you. I said when it's a township-backed initiative, such as parking initiative on Main Street, we can move at lightning speed with that. We can move as fast as the other agencies let us. At this point, this is not a township. We can't move. We're not doing the project. This is a developer that's come into our area and has asked for assistance to do something. Again, he's doing the thing. He's before Pinelands now, I believe. I know he's made an application to Pinelands. Pinelands is going to have a lot to say about this.
From what I understand, there are several areas that he needs to look into well before considering to do what he's doing, or what he's trying to do, I should clarify. Including he should probably be consulting the FAA regarding building height, among everything else, because that could have a drastic impact on plane crashes and everything else that could be happening with, as I mentioned before, the ecological, economic impact to our town, as well as increased property taxes for all the residents due to having to pay for these roads, pay for all these different things that he's looking to do. And currently, we have started a Facebook group that is currently 286 people strong. for Preserve Rural Life in Hamilton Township, Atlantic County. So please take us seriously because we are trying very hard to squelch this before it gets out of hand.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Nace, Ms. Bugden was next. She had stood in the back of the room to come up. Please come up. Okay, thank you.
I'm just following up with what Alice said. Susan Burns from Manheim Avenue.
Yes.
Cologne section. Our land actually abuts right up to the proposed area for Trophy Park. I was going to say the same thing about the Township Zoning Board. We were really caught off guard that since the entire township has now been declared a redevelopment area, that this committee is solely responsible for rezoning. Is that correct?
There are certain times when the committee can rezone on a redevelopment agreement. Ms. Green, would you speak on that?
So it's not necessarily, it's not rezoning the entire area. A redevelopment agreement, through a redevelopment agreement, the Township Committee and Planning Board can make certain exceptions for uses of a certain piece of property. So anything in that agreement would only be for that piece of property.
But it would be rezoning it from a residential RD5
No.
to commercial?
No, there would be no rezoning. It would, exceptions would be made within the agreement. The zoning won't change.
That's confusing.
Yeah. It essentially creates an overlay
Hold on,
zone
guys.
just for that property.
Let's hear the answers, please.
This redevelopment.
Aaron, can you speak into the microphone a
Sorry.
little more? Thanks.
So it only affects this particular piece of property. It's, the agreement is an overlay zone, but the actual zoning doesn't change. The agreement allows for uses other than what it's zoned for. But
So you're rezoning
But
it.
it's not going to be commercial, it's just that agreement, that's all.
Okay. So, and does that go to a vote with this committee, to vote on the overlay, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And is there a
And
public
then-
hearing with that?
There is a public hearing, and then it also has to go before the planning board.
Yes.
Okay, so my
So that-
question was, you said it comes to public hearing. Is that before the night that you vote? Was there several meetings before that to allow for public comment?
So the first time, the township has to introduce it, so that's, it's the same as any other ordinance. So the township committee will introduce it, and then there's time for public comment during that meeting. And once it's introduced, township committee refers it to the planning board. So then that's another public hearing for the planning board to decide whether or not it coincides with the township's master plan and is appropriate to move forward. So if the planning board says, yes, it's appropriate to move forward, then it comes back to township committee for the the public hearing. The second reading and the public hearing.
That's
So
the
there-
point I was trying to make, Mr. Burns. It's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and it's rezoned. If it goes that far, if the developer's able to even get it to that point, you're going to have public comment multiple times going through this to express your concerns.
Okay. So hypothetically, the vote is tonight. How would you all vote for the trophy park?
I don't have all the facts, so I can't tell you that. Listen, I'm all for economic development, but I'm more for integrity of neighborhoods. So at the end of the day, at the end of the day, we got to get all the facts out. All those facts have to be presented to us and to you, to the planning board, so an informed decision can be made. There's no foregone conclusion here, is my point.
Okay. Because I was surprised at the last meeting that I was at when Mr. Now did the presentation. It was a very lengthy presentation about what I hear is up to $200 million complex, changes to roads, hotels. I mean, we all know what it all encompasses, and it's a huge presentation that he did on that can change the landscape of a lot of our neighborhoods and
You
this
know
township.
why we put that presentation on here? We put it on here because we wanted the public informed. I can tell you when they did it in my neighborhood, that opportunity did not exist. So that's why we wanted you as the public to be informed what's going on in your neighborhood.
But my question is, or just an observation, only Mr. Patali and Mrs. Link asked him any questions. So I was really surprised that of a project of that magnitude, there were no questions by the committee hardly.
I have reviewed a voluminous amount of paperwork on that. Everything that's been opened, everything that's been received, I've reviewed it all. I mean, my questions were answered prior to the presentation. I knew what he was going to present, is my point, so I didn't have
Wouldn't
questions.
that help the community and the residents to know more about, if you ask, sometimes I know you ask questions just to get it out there,
Yes, I do.
and nothing was out there. I mean, we
Well,
had to take
I
it in
would
our
be-
own hands.
I'd be
to-
cautious of reading too much into it. Again, it's because of the amount of information that I had already digested and didn't feel there were any questions that I had that I did not already have answers to.
Okay. So it's
This
not an
voluminous
automatic
amount of information that you had, was any of that before I had to vote on this redevelopment plan when I asked for information and I got basically nothing?
I thought you received everything, Mr. Town.
I received nothing. I walked in that night, Judy had the booklet in front of her. I asked for stuff, and all I got was what was in the packet already. That was it, and told to go online and look online.
I do what I do as mayor of this town. When an inquiry comes in about relocating or doing a business in this town, I take the phone call. That's what I do. Once I take that phone call, I set up a meeting with Aaron or the administrator or my deputy mayor, and we meet with the people in person to find out if there's any merit to it. You'd be surprised at how many people come in with ideas, but there's no substance to it. So
all I'm asking for right now is I would like copies of this voluminous amount of information. I would like copies of it. So
Me
I
too.
can see it.
I want the same.
Mr. Patali, I would like you to be a little more truthful. On August 15th, you sat in here, and on timestamp on August 15th on the video, 15 minutes and 43 seconds to 18 minutes and 20 seconds, and an hour and 17 minutes to an hour and 24 minutes, and an hour and 27 minutes to an hour and 28 minutes, for a total of 9 minutes. You railed about how you didn't get any information. Yet you neglected to mention that you met with Aaron on Saturday
Yes, I
afternoon.
did. Yes,
No,
she
you
even
didn't.
said it.
No, you
Yes,
did
I
not
did.
mention it on any of those 3 times. And you stood here again tonight and said, I had no information.
Aaron, what
I
information
get it.
did you give me? And which was, she didn't have the booklet, so I didn't get the booklet.
My point, Mr. Vitale, is at no time in this August 15th video did you mention that you asked her to come in on a Saturday afternoon for an hour and a half and meet with her. But you came into this township, you sat down at the committee, and
What
you
does that matter with any of it? I got no information.
Let me finish. Excuse me. Your lack of omission on credibility here is what I'm after,
Oh,
Ms.
please.
Vitale. You're going in again with this, I don't have any information. You got it.
Okay, I would like to make a comment here. Redevelopment was in its infancy was to take property that was was sort of distressed, like the cotton mill, and offer the process of redevelopment. Such as the Atlantic City racetrack. That would be a redevelopment area. But taking land that is virgin land has never been developed. Why is it? I don't understand.
All right, anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Mr. Stray.
Wait, Bruce, someone else first. And then Maureen.
My name's Barry Glasser. I live at 4206 Cameron Court. Karen, okay? I'm a physician. I'm at ACID, I'm the doctor of that school. I'm also board certified in addiction medicine. October 6th is the theme. Also board certified in internal medicine. I've been practicing for years in this area. I also was a major in environmental scientist at Cornell University. I've been in the jungles of the Amazon. I've been in the jungles in Southeast Asia. I've been in the military. And I read current articles. And it's very interesting that in this conversation here, we're dealing with the floods in Florida. These environmental times are changing. We're dealing with addiction like there's never been before. And let me tell you, there are articles that clearly show there is clear correlation between taking down these trees and the effect it has, not only on our environment, but on individuals, on our children growing up in this community. I look at the beautiful picture behind you, the Township of Hamilton. It doesn't include buildings, land taken down.
Mr. Glasser, could you just get a little closer?
It doesn't include land taken down. It doesn't include trees. You go into those places, which I go to almost every day because I live right close to there, next to the Pomona Woods. There's possums, there's turtles, there's all sorts of wildlife. There is so much undeveloped. We're having trouble with the Wells Fargo. There is so much land in this area that has already, needs to be developed. There's malls that are like falling apart. To actually sell a property that already has trees in adjacent to Pomona Park, and destroy more life, the impact that has negatively, including for our children growing up, when it's been shown clearly that children being taken away from like walking in the woods to actually have more green lowers your blood pressure, lowers your risk for addiction, improves your health, your longevity. This is ridiculous to even consider this proposal. It should not even be considered, both environmentally in this day and age, and also for health and what's going on in the world, and including our community. And by the way, I see October 6th, you mentioned, this heroin epidemic. If you ever want me to talk about drugs, I'll be glad to. There almost is no heroin. It's all fentanyl, it's xylazine, it's tranq, and it's nitrazine and other drugs being introduced. And, so I'll be happy to talk to you if you ever want to discuss really what's going on in the world with that as well. But this proposal, it's ridiculous. It shouldn't even go forward. You do not knock down forests.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to comment on any proposed or future application, okay? But what I want to comment on, and I think there's a distinction between the entire township being an area in need of redevelopment, which I'm fundamentally against. Because what that does is it takes the public out of the process when there's a use change. Typically, a permitted use, as you know, will go directly to the planning board. Doesn't have to change the use of any land, whether it's in Bears Head, Weymouth, Cologne, Laureldale, anywhere. The problem I have with the entire township being an area in need of redevelopment, it doesn't give, in my opinion, the opportunity for the public to hear the professionals, both on the applicant or the township, the arguments for the use. Whereas a area, if it doesn't go to the zoning board for that, or it is in the zoning office, it is assigned to either the zoning or planning board, there will be a phase or a crucial step that the arguments for or against a use, okay, and that's the downfall or the fault of, or the weakness of a area in need of redevelopment. So I think that's important for you to understand.
Appreciate
and
that.
I think you do. So I really wasn't in favor of the concept from the beginning. I think we sat here in this room when it was explained to us by an attorney. I was skeptical, as many people were at the time, and I think looking at that type of development anywhere, in any neighborhood, it's flawed, because it doesn't allow, I think, the public input into the use phase of an application. Thank you.
Ellen Dix, and I'm confused. Aaron Crean sat right here a few minutes ago. Aaron, that's why I looked at you. I wrote, when she was speaking, redevelopment agreement can make certain exceptions, create an overlay zone, then introduce, Township Committee would introduce and have public comment, and then you would be sending it to the Planning Board for discussion and public comment. Is that a fair representation, what I've noted? Thank you, Aaron. My confusion is, you said a couple minutes ago, they've already applied to the Pinelands. If this hasn't gone through the legal steps here, at this board, at the planning board, why would they be spending all the money for all the engineering and drawings and everything that has to be done for those extensive Pinelands applications, which I've been opering and seeing them on my home computer? Why would they do that unless this is a foregone conclusion? Thank you.
First of all, I want to be very, very clear. This is not a foregone conclusion. This is a developer that came into this town, pitched a project, and went out on the open market to a piece of property that was for sale. He made the deal. Now it's up for the township to figure out whether or not it's a development that will work where he's trying to do it. Would you answer her question, please?
The only thing he's started with the Pinelands is the endangered and threatened species survey, because as we know, that's the only portion that he can start.
So he is undertaking the threatened and endangered species study, which takes a year?
Yes.
And he's doing that now? Do you know when it started?
I do not.
Okay, okay.
I just know that he said he's started
That's
it.
the first thing he's doing?
That's the first thing. Yeah, that's all he's permitted to do at this time by the Pinelands, without submitting a full development application.
Is there a date to schedule here for the next step for these people?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Ms. Maureen, please.
Thank you, Maureen Bugden, resident, superintendent of elections. One question and one bold reminder for those at home and those in the audience. One, are these meetings going to be live telecast again?
We haven't made that decision, but.
Yeah, I asked about that. I don't know. I know we were looking at some different software.
We had the issue, Maureen, when we were trying to do it, that people were
Close.
being cut off when they were
Close.
trying to speak.
Gotcha.
So we wanted to make sure we had that worked out to be considered in the future, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for considering that again. Some of us are caregivers. Some of us have health issues, not myself, thank goodness, right now, who can't be here. So watching this live is really of tremendous interest to us. And of course, there's still COVID out there and whatnot. Wanted to offer the opportunity, I'm sorry, I know there's a very hot, interesting topic up tonight, but I wanted to remind everybody that the voter registration deadline for the upcoming general election on November 8th is Tuesday, October 18th. If you're not registered already, if you've moved within the county, if you'd like to update your signature, your married name, your divorced name, get your 17-year-old to register to vote so they can vote when they become 18 rather than waiting for a pending period to take place. These elections cost money. Not only is there the general election on November 8th, there is the special school for the Greater Egg Harbor High School District in 14 consolidated voting locations coming up this Thursday. So rather than save some of your comments for a topic that hits home, whether it's pro or con, whatever your feelings are, please, these elections are a fortune. There's a lot of safeguards in place. Election workers are under threat nationwide. So come out and have your voice heard, whether it's for the school referendum or the November 8th general election. Thank you to our veterans in the room. Thank you to the former township committee members who are in the audience. It really speaks to our town that they're still very much involved in showing up. And thanks for your time.
Thank you.
The close of registration, our office is on Main Street, 5920, will be open until 9 p.m. that day. Yeah, and the Greater Egg Harbor School, it's a long one, Greater Egg Harbor Regional High School District referendum this Thursday, polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m.
Are they the normal polls, or are they like the library?
No, they're consolidated polling sites so for those of you who would have received your sample ballot already and say, oh my God, I got a couple text messages. I usually vote at the Powell Building, or I usually vote here. They're consolidated. They're not going to be the same exact locations you use during a general election where the turnout is greater and county-wide. These are specific to the Greater Egg Harbor Regional High School District voters and those who send students to those schools. It's impacting Oakcrest, Absegami, and Cedar Creek High School, and it is for a bond referendum. I'm not going to speak on behalf of it because I'm your superintendent of elections, so pay attention to your sample ballot. It'll tell you where you vote for that specific election. And then, of course, there'll be early voting beginning on October 29th for the general election. So for those of you in Mays Landing, right here on the second floor of the Atlantic County Public Library. And then that continues through Sunday prior to the November 8th election. And then, of course, you'll go back to your regular polling location for Election Day itself if you didn't vote by mail or early vote. Okay. But please vote.
Thank you. Mayor.
Okay, Manhattan Avenue. Here to speak about Trophy Park, obviously the hot topic as we discussed, but besides the environmental impact and the traffic impact and the impact into our personal lives of what we have and what we've grown to love in our rural community, I want to look to the people to my right here, our firefighters here. We're arguing about half a fire truck. When what is going to be required to do a 4-story hotel fire with children in these buildings. I don't want to put you guys at risk. I don't want to put our more taxes at risk because we're talking a half a fire truck. No, that's not going to take it. With the development that we're seeing here, 270 acres and with dormitories with children in there, we're putting our police and we're putting our firemen at risk. And you know, I love the environment, I love everything, but I love these guys more, the guys that protect our lives every single day. And to push this forward is going to be detrimental to these gentlemen right here and to our tax dollars. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Venezia. Some of you probably know I grew up here in Mays Landing. I still have an interest here in Mays Landing. I have family here in Mays Landing. I spent many years in government, as some of you may know. I could even tell you I spent more years at the dais than all 5 of you combined together. I see 2 things here in Mays Landing. I won't touch on the third one that's just been discussed because I don't have enough knowledge about that. But I see 2 things here that are going on in Mays Landing that I personally think are a disaster.
Okay.
Number 1, I have heard that, congratulations, you now own the MUA building, but I heard it's going to get knocked down. Now, why would you knock down a building that has the potential? First off, it's probably got a net value of $600,000. The assessed value is always lower than what the true value is. So you have a building that's worth $500,000 or $600,000. You want to knock it down. It's big enough to sustain 2 rental properties in there for medical or legal, whatever the case may be. It would make an ideal site for professional office use. So what I would propose, do not knock that building down. As a matter of fact, collect rent on it. I think our fire company needs some money. They've been impacted for the last 2 years. With COVID, they don't even have the ability to go out and do a boot drop anymore. So their funding is pretty well hampered. That would be an opportunity where Hamilton Township could rent out that building rather than knocking it down for parking, which I don't see what the need of the parking is, but we'll get into that in a moment. But the need really is for the public safety of the community, and that would be, you have an excellent source right now. And by the way, in my 25 years, I never saw money fall out of the sky, okay? Right now, you have an opportunity where money's going to fall out of the sky, and you're going to get $50,000, $60,000 a year for rent. That is permissible to do that. Going over to the bank. I heard you say earlier, you can't speculate, but that's exactly what's happening with the purchase of the Wells Fargo building. You're speculating. What if you can't find a tenant? Secondly, you're not permitted to do that under speculation. It's got to be a very specific use. And if you're thinking you're going to rent it out, well, what happens if you don't ever get anybody that's going to rent it? It's going to take a lot of money to retrofit the building. And then I even heard something about foot traffic, that you're going to need to have that for parking. Foot traffic in a bike trail. Where do they need parking? If you're walking, if you're on a bicycle, where are they going to park at? They can park anywhere.
Joe, what about the individuals that just want to enjoy the water and the view in the
Then-
area?
then the
and-
next
and-
thing
and
that I
maybe
wanna say,
visit the
Mr.
historic
Mr.
train
Mayor,
station?
Then the next thing I want to say is this. Right now is not really the time to put the town in bond for a speculative opportunity. The fire company, I wholeheartedly agree. God forbid if this township ever has to have a paid fire company, we have to do everything that we can to keep our members intact. So you can't go against them because you're going against the whole entire town. But the issue of purchasing that building for $465,000, number one, they've had it up for sale for a year and they can't sell it. So that's the one issue. But the main issue, if it's truly a need that you have to have the building, Wells Fargo is a mega billion corporation. And I see that seal behind you that says the Township of Hamilton. It's a nonprofit corporation. Why don't they deed it to the city for $1? And they can write it off on their taxes. That's what I would be doing if I was sitting up there. I would work every way, which way I can, to try to get Wells Fargo to agree that they'll just simply turn it over to the township. But why spend $500,000? And it's not going to end there. That's just the beginning. I see this plan as a disaster, honestly, Mr. Mayor. I still have interest in Mays Landing, and I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good fit. I think it was rushed through. There was not enough thought process that went to it as to how you could get the building where it's not going to cost the taxpayer money. You're taking 2 ratables off of the tax rolls, the MUA, and now it's going to be the bank. And like I said, you may get $25,000 a year in taxes now. What if you only get half of that amount when somebody wants to rent it out? And by the way, don't shoot me because I'm not the one that did it, but I got to tell you something. All across America, downtown, Main Street, USA, it's gone. And you can thank Walmart and you can thank Amazon. But you're not going to attract many businesses, and certainly by doing something with that bank and with the MUA building, you're going to attract even less.
So you're suggesting that we just ignore Main Street?
No, I
and-
didn't say, Mr.
Well,
Mayor, I did not say that.
But Joe,
Don't-
but that's what I...
No, you want to hear that. That's not what I said.
So what should I do?
What I'm
What should
saying
we do
is,
for Main
you
Street,
should
Joe?
have evaluated the situation first to see if in fact you can get Wells Fargo to donate the building for $1. They could write it off. There's a mega billion corporation. They don't need our $450,000. As a matter of fact, it would probably be beneficial to them to donate it. But now you just introduced an ordinance, and that's what I wanted to speak about earlier. There's no need to do the ordinance at this time. Exercise all thought options first before you proceed. And this, I hate to say it, it's the truth.
Joe, you say the process is rushed. This process
Process
started
has
back
been
in
rushed,
January.
and I think that it's going to backfire on the township. I think it's a terrible idea. As far as parking is concerned, there's plenty of parking. You have the library parking lot. You have...
Joe, did you attend the SWAT meetings?
No.
Did Second Street is dedicated to diversity?
I haven't attended any of these meetings. I've been following with what I've been reading, and I personally think that this has been rushed way too fast.
We appreciate that,
Explore
Joe.
the opportunity to see what's out there before you pull the trigger. And tonight, you loaded the ammunition in the gun. The next meeting, you're going to pull the trigger. It's a disaster. It's truly a disaster. You shouldn't do it. You're
Thank you.
removing 2 ratables from the township when you could be making money on those ratables instead. It's a net loss just from the inception. Don't do it, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public wish to speak? Please.
name is Mark Jenigan. I just have a few questions and one comment. Mrs. Hopkins, that fire didn't burn for a week at Wheaton's. It may have smoldered until the next day, but
Oh,
that
it
was
was
about it.
fabulous colors though, wasn't
Okay,
it?
thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. It didn't burn for a week. And we actually stopped and went to the 9/11 memorial and then came back, so,
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
thank you. Question I have is, where's the rest of the money coming for the fire truck?
We introduce a capital budget every year.
Okay. And when will that be allocated?
We're already starting the process on next year's budget.
Okay. Where did the money go from COVID, and where did the money go that you were supposed to put aside the last 3 or 4 years?
I
Nobody
can't
knows-
answer.
nobody- I mean, we just missing money, so we have no idea where the money is.
There's no missing money. If you don't put it aside, it's not missing. So it was never put aside. And if you recall, we were in COVID. I mean, our revenue from just the police department alone, Chief, how much is our revenue off? How much?
Where's the COVID money at?
The COVID money was spent to get us to a zero budget. So we didn't burden our
So nothing was allocated
taxpayers.
to the fire department
You
for a new
can't-
truck?
I'm sorry?
Nothing was allocated out of the COVID money for the new truck, because we didn't allocate it for 4 years, so there was no money pushed towards that, right? Yes or no? It's just yes or no?
There were no capital,
No,
there
okay.
were police vehicles bought, there were public works vehicles bought, there was not a fire truck bought.
Okay. And the last thing I have to say is, have you, any of you ever been behind the Wells Fargo building? That you're
Yes.
talking about putting a dock or overlooking?
Yeah.
You know that's all marsh, right?
I grew up there, yes.
Okay, so how are you putting all this back there?
That's what we have engineers to do, and.
Can't. Just be honest, you can't do it. You're gonna put an opus in a marsh?
How are we going to do the trestle then? The bike path?
Good question. Ask the county.
Well,
Like they said, put up to 50% and then we.
Look, I'm not about putting up roadblocks, I'm about finding
Okay.
solutions, and
So
that's
what's-
what we need to
What is
do.
the solution? You just told these people that you're gonna put this behind the building, knowing damn well you can't. It's a marsh. It is
First
a
of all,
marsh.
you're saying something that you apparently have knowledge that we don't have. I don't have that knowledge that you have that it can't be done.
Okay.
Again, I'm looking at it as, we're gonna make every effort to get it done. That's the way we should be proceeding.
Final question, where did the money go for the fire truck?
Again, to answer his question, because he asked me a question, I asked Mrs. Link, who's been on this committee for years, what happened with the set-asides? I don't know. I got back on committee, and guess what? Tonight, you have $450,000 going in for a fire truck. We're taking action.
We need the other half.
We're gonna get you the other half. That's what you do capital budgets for. Would you like to come back up to the microphone? Come back up to the microphone, please.
If you don't approve the Wells Fargo building, well, then you're not getting a fire truck. That's what you make people believe.
That is not the case. What I said was,
Get him on the
I want to be very clear what I said. What I said was, the cost of pulling the bond it's better if we do it at one time, both at one time. That's what I said.
Okay. So you're saying that redevelopment is more of a priority than the fire?
I absolutely, again,
That's what
you're
you're
putting
saying,
words,
'cause
no,
you're
I am not.
combining
I
it.
support our volunteers, I support our fire
We
departments.
hear that all the time, or they hear it, whatever. Let's say that.
I think what he's saying is they combined them because it's cheaper to process one bond.
It's public safety. You can't put a price on it. That's it.
I don't know how you respond to that.
Yeah, I just want to answer your question. I just want to, it was brought up the other day about revenue and the police department. I just want to caution everybody that thinks that there's a direct correlation between our productivity and revenue. We stop cars and we write tickets to change people's behavior. So we don't do it for the revenue.
Of course not, right.
Okay, so I just.
But as a byproduct with COVID,
As a byproduct,
protecting
I
our.
just want to make sure everybody knows,
Chief.
we're not stopping you to.
So,
be
Chief,
the township,
protecting
so-
our officers.
As you go out
Is revenue down substantially in the township?
Yes, why COVID,
Thank you.
that there was an order not to stop cars.
Correct.
That is correct.
Oh,
Please.
that's where we lost all our revenue.
Cynthia Murray, Cologne Avenue. I just have a couple of questions. I was late to the game on this, so can you explain to me the process of what is open to the public for discussion and what's not? I missed the one in Wells Fargo.
You
Did
can
I miss
discuss
my
anything you like right now. This is open public forum.
No, you already voted, didn't you, on the,
Well,
Did
we
we just
voted
vote?
to introduce it, and now there'll be another hearing next meeting.
So we'll have a hearing, but it'll be the same members voting, so it'll be the same vote.
Well, I have changed my vote from public input in the past, and if the public input is as such, I mean, I've always been subject to change my mind.
I just wanted to know the process so that I can be more educated on when I need to be paying attention.
Well, with it being approved tonight, Ms. Martino will be listed on the next meeting, correct?
You're speaking about the bond ordinance?
Yes.
I will have,
I think you were specifically speaking regarding the Wells Fargo purchased.
Wells Fargo was a resolution that was adopted.
Yes.
If
What's
you,
the
if you
process
want to,
for-
if
I'm
you want
sorry.
to give me a call tomorrow, I'll run the whole thing through for you. There's also, it's posted on the back board, but I have no problem explaining the whole process for you.
Right, I would like to know what the process is prior to the vote. That's what I'm looking for, because I came
Let
here
me-
tonight and it was already
Mr. Mayor,
voted
you
on.
want me to
Sure.
explain this
Please,
now?
thank you.
Okay. So anything on the agenda, there's a sign-up sheet for anything that's not for a public hearing, but is on the agenda that you want to speak. So if you come a couple minutes early and you put that down, like you could have put 3B, Wells Fargo Resolution to buy the bank, and then you could have been heard prior to the vote.
Got it. I had just heard that there were some things that the public was allowed to comment on, and there's things that public was not allowed to comment
No,
on.
you can always comment, it's
Okay.
just when. So that's early public comment.
Okay.
If it's set on my agenda for a public comment, then you'll be heard then.
Got it. So that'll be really.
That's on the second, on an ordinance.
Thank you. So it'll be really important as we go forward for kind of destroying an area of the township that has been rural, that has been farm. There's coyotes that are in those woods. This is an area of the township that we don't have sidewalks, we don't have water, we don't have sewer, and we're glad not to have those things because of where we are. So it's really important to think forward to the future of this township and what we've promised to the people who are here. If you want to build residential, 1 house, 5 acres, whatever it's supposed to be, not for some conglomerate to come in that changed their mind about Jackson Township, New Jersey, to come here. There's Bader Field in Atlantic City, there's tons of places they can go to have their high-rise buildings. It's not something that's conducive of the people who live in that area or to the people who visit our area. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak? Mr. Huster.
Eric Costa, 3065 Manheim Avenue. And I don't want to belabor a weary crowd at this point, but I do want to just bring some things to the attention of the board just so we can get some clarification. So I have here the 10-page redevelopment plan that designates the township in its entirety a redevelopment zone, or an area in need of redevelopment. This says right here that the development of the rehabilitation area shall be governed by the underlying zoning currently in effect throughout the township. So it stands to reason to me that if you don't want to use this zoning, that you need to make another area of redevelopment. Is that what you intend to do with these 6 parcels in question for Trophy Park?
There is no intent on any of the committee members up here. This is a process that a developer has come into the town, wished to buy a piece of private property, and now he has to go through the process in the town to see if it can possibly fit. You have 5 members up here, and then you have 9 members on a planning board, and you have 7 on a zoning board that will all hear this prior to anything being adopted, approved, or anything of that nature.
Without a significant change to this document, I can tell him right now it won't fit.
Then
So
you've-
what is he doing differently? The way this has been done in the past is we decide as a group that we need another area of redevelopment, something like the Atlantic City Race Course. We look at it and we say that area is in need of redevelopment. We do a development or a determination of needs study, let's say. Are you planning on doing the same process with this so that there's public input? Because I would love to know what the 268 acres needs in terms of redevelopment. It doesn't seem logical to me that we're not taking care of what we need to fix in town first before we look at this as a last resort. It says right in this document, the primary goal of the redevelopment plan is to eliminate those conditions that cause the area of rehabilitation to be considered an area in need of rehabilitation. That is a big roundabout way. That's a big roundabout way of saying, take care of the stuff that needs to be taken care of first before you do something like this.
Would you provide us with a copy of what you're looking at so we
Have
have
it
it?
online the same way I found it.
I
found
just
it
would
the
like the
same way
reference
everybody
point
else
of
would
what
find
he
it.
has, that's all. I mean, is
Posted
there,
right on our website.
Okay, but what page, what are you, I mean, so we can look at exactly what you're looking at.
It is, it would be page 4. Page 4. But you really should read the whole document, because all of the information in here is pertinent.
I got you.
I think, and I'm not trying to be facetious, I am frustrated, because you're telling me it's my fault that I live near an airport. That's what I'm hearing. I bought that parcel knowing that the trade-off was worthwhile, that I live near an airport, I coexist with that noise, and you'll never hear any of these neighbors come and complain about jet noise, ever.
But who said that? Who said that we're penalizing you because you live near an airport? I don't recall any committee member here saying
Ms.
that.
Crane simply stood up and said that we're going to, the likelihood of it being developed as single-family dwellings is low, so we're simply going to rezone the parcel.
No,
You did. You did. You said you're going to create a special development district just for this project. That's on record. It's the same thing. The change of zoning is elimination of zoning. This is what this document does. It eliminates, your redevelopment area is, it's not even changing the zoning, it's eliminating it. Yeah, you should probably come to the mic.
Putting her under the bus.
These things are negotiated with our redevelopment attorney and the applicant's attorney. I'm not sure what you think I meant about living near the airport. I never always...
Did you or did you not say that the likelihood of these, you said
Yeah,
these
I
parcels
did
are
say
in
that.
the airport's runway, runway 13, they're in line with the runway. The
It's-
likelihood of them becoming single-family dwellings is probably low.
Yes.
Therefore, we are going to create a new zoning boundary or a new district or an overlay district, however you want to describe it, for this project.
It's being considered. It's...
There needs to be more public input. I don't want to bite at the apple. I want to sit down and talk about where you're planting the orchard.
Okay, that's a very good point, and I appreciate it. That is a
By
very
the
good
time
point.
the apple hits our lap, he's gone. He's already clearing land. Everybody here knows that. Thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Sir, please.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council, ma'am. James Pridgeon, Manheim Avenue. You talked about the process of going from your department to them, from you guys to the planning board, correct? Am I correct? How the process
Yes.
is going
Yes.
around? Now, to me, I think you guys had missed the entire program. It should have been squashed from the get-go. You should have not allowed. You should have taken it back. You should have tabled it. Have the public input. Have our input into it, and then have it presented to the council for a vote.
What are you referring to?
Trophy Park.
But we haven't voted on Trophy Park.
What you did,
No.
you voted on getting them passed through the loops.
No, we didn't.
Yes, you
No,
did.
No, we did not.
The MOU, you gave them the MOU.
Well, we,
That's what I'm talking about.
okay, I understand, I see where you're going, okay. But,
You do. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else in the public? Anyone else in the public wish to speak?
My name is Bob Fink. I've lived on Manheim Avenue for 55 years, actually a little bit longer than that. I have a couple of questions for you, if I may. At the September 5th meeting, when Mr. Now gave his presentation, at that time, one of our committee members asked him, has he closed on the property? At that time, he said no, he was doing it that Friday. Has he closed on the property?
I have no idea. Mr. Fink, we do not get involved with the private purchase of property from a developer.
Well, then
That's
let-
not our job.
Then let me quote this, and I believe it was you. This is the most comprehensive and ambitious recreation proposal in Atlantic County, New Jersey history, most likely well beyond the region. So, we're talking about due diligence. Our last meeting, you promised us you were going to do your due diligence because you have grandchildren in the township and you want to make sure everything's right with them. We have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and you can't tell me whether or not that property's been bought yet. I can't believe that.
How would I know that?
Well,
I don't
when you-
know what properties were bought and sold in the township. The question was
don't?
asked and the developer answered it.
So you have no idea, any of you up there, whether this
Do not.
process...
I was actually on vacation for a week.
Oh, okay.
So.
Now, how does he get to go to the Pinelands if he hasn't bought the property yet?
Part of the process is he has to do an endangered species study, and that usually comes first.
That comes first.
Yes.
And I understand that's 3 different seasons, spring, fall, and spring again?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Now, how about, as of August 20th, Mr. Now is supposed to have his escrow money put into that account. Has that been done?
I'm getting a head shake yes that it's been done.
Okay. Can we ask what quantity that was? I know the one time you had mentioned it was to pay, I believe, your fees to go on.
It's for the professional fees that the township incurs. It's a $50,000 escrow.
$50,000. And that's been put in the account?
Yes.
Okay. We were talking a little while ago about the airport and flight path. I'd just like to know what the liabilities would be to, a little closer. I would like to know what the liabilities would be to the township, knowing that there has been 4 fatal plane crashes on that site, and you're going to proceed with possibly endangering these children and things like that. 3 of those crashes were in direct center of that proposal. Direct center. And we're going to even consider something like this where it could be the possibility. How does that affect the township? How does that affect you? Do you get sued if there's something going on? What is the story on that? Nothing?
I do not, Mr. Fink, I do not know. And I think that's, again, that's why we need public input, because you just gave information that I don't think any of us had knowledge of up here.
About the 3 crashes there?
I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're aware of that now.
Yes.
Also, the statement was made that you haven't any thought as to whether it's going to be a positive vote or anything. The night that Mr. Now was here, these are the comments that were made to him.
Into the microphone, please.
Poster?
Yeah.
All right. First it was said, I'm all for it if it improves traffic flow. One of you said that, okay? Another one of you said, we're looking forward to helping you get all your approvals. I think you know who said that. And also, don't worry, everything will be fine. And this came right from the redevelopment committee. You should extend your highway all the way to Cologne Avenue, which means going through Leapy's Farm and the Pinelands and wetlands. And that came from your Township Development Committee. And then the last statement, this is the one that gets me the best. This, I'm not going to mention his name, but I think he may be listening. I'm a little too far away? I can't hear you. Oh, okay. Let me get rid of my gum. This was the last comment made as Mr. Now was leaving. This was the best presentation I've ever heard. God bless you. And this is coming from our administration and Township Committee, and you don't want us to believe that you don't already have your minds somewhat made up as to what's going on? I just find that hard to believe.
Mr. Now, we have to make sure that, I'm sorry, forgive me, Mr. Fink.
That's all right.
We have to make sure that we put on a face for other investors in this committee that we're willing to work with individuals that want to invest in our community. We have to make sure that people understand that. We welcome them to come and invest in our community. We can welcome them, bring them in, but the bottom line is they still have to go through the process.
Well, how about putting it on a face for all of us that we're going to get an equal share in this, an equal say? I mean, we all think that we're getting...
You're up here getting a say right now, and you can continue to do that through the process.
All right, we
You're not being
appreciate that.
shut out by any stretch.
Okay. Well, that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
And Mr. Fink, you can call me anytime. I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you in person.
That's another question. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes.
Since this has been proposed, $250,000 or whatever, Have any of you come out in our neighborhood to see what's going on?
No.
Any of you?
I can tell you, I have not been out in your neighborhood. I know the area very well, and we're not that far along in the process at this point.
All right.
I mean,
Do you have any idea where this 4-lane superhighway is going to go through our township?
well, first of all, it went through a planning workshop, and they're volunteers in your community, members that live in your community, in the entire township, that volunteer their time in order to review applications to get them set so they can go to a planning or zoning board. It was reviewed at one of those workshops, and that's,
That was not my question.
okay, I apologize.
Question is, have any of you been in our community to see Hamilton Walk, Cologne,
One of my best
whatever?
friends lives in your community. I'm in there often.
All right.
Yes.
And in regards to this project, do you know where the highway's going through the property?
I have seen, and I actually reached out to individuals that may be affected because I want to understand fully myself of what the impact is going to be. I've already done that, yes.
All right, at this time, and I'd like this to be on the record, we are inviting all of you to come out and meet with us. We're more than happy to show you the boundaries. We've lived in this area forever. We probably know more than
I can meet with you at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning if you like.
That's fine. Anyone else?
Mr. Fink, if you would like to give me your number, I will call you, and we'll meet at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Yeah, please.
Good, how are you, Bob?
I won't give yours out, don't give mine.
Where are we going to meet?
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Everywhere's
I'll
muddy
call you in the
right
morning.
now.
Okay, yep. Bob, are you finished, Mr. Fink? All right. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a
Yes.
motion. Oh, I apologize. Where?
The woman right in front, she can,
Little lady in the front.
Oh,
yeah.
please, ma'am.
Little lady in front there.
oh, you got it. You're hired.
Well, my name is Danielle French from Harding Highway. Some of you may have remembered me from the last meeting. Things are going badly at my place. Nothing really has gotten any better. The chief of police actually came out and spoke to the owners of 6825 Harding Highway about the dogs constantly coming over. They were over yesterday. They treat my property like theirs. They terrorize my horses, my ponies. They're going to run them through the fence. I have video from yesterday on my iPad right now. If nobody wants to believe me, look at the video. They're going to run them through the fence. They're going to get out on Route 40. Somebody's going to get killed. I can't stress this to you enough. I've already filed charges, but who knows how long that takes. That's not a quick process. I don't know how often you have had to do it yourself. It's not a quick process. And in the meantime, this is an ongoing thing. I don't know what else to do. I'm begging the committee to please consider putting up a fence down Beacon Avenue or either on the property of 6825. It's a nuisance property. It's been a nuisance property for years. Nothing's changed. New ownership, just as bad as before. Please, put a fence up. Charge it to the homeowner. Put a lien on their property, something, before somebody gets killed.
Ms. French, I will get with the chief. I know he followed up with you. I'll get with him tomorrow, and we'll discuss it, and one of us will reach out to you.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Hi, everyone. Jason Howell, representing Pinelands Preservation Alliance. Some of the residents made our organization aware of the proposed Trophy Park development. And I can say as an organization, we are concerned with the rezoning or dezoning, however you'd like to phrase it, of rural communities who base their lives on the zoning of townships. So having that be undermined, I think, is a great threat to the culture of the Pinelands as well as the natural environment, which is quite beautiful in that area. So I would think most of these people here would like you to greatly consider any change to zoning as a momentous occasion in the residents' lives in the township. And I think I can speak as an organization that we will robustly oppose any change in the zoning in that area. And I believe the Pinelands Commission will be sympathetic to the residents here. And, Egg Harbor City tried a similar scheme with their lake, and the residents made it very clear that that was not going to happen. And the township wasted a long time, many years, promoting that proposal for it to go nowhere. So, I would just like you to consider the residents here and their lives, which they planned around the zoning in this township.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Make a motion to close public portion.
Motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion, second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Meeting adjourned.